Hi, everybody, it's Weird Wink Wilkinson laughing and scratching at you. How's everybody doing today? I got a little bit of a stiff neck. Let me just fix this up. Oh, that feels a lot better. Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very weird.
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Things that cannot be explained, things that most people don't want to know about. That is where we come in.
No human being would stack books like this.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. I'm all out of bubblegum.
Oh, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is paying 101. The instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
Do you want some coffee, Mr. Tully?
Do I?
Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
It's a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Hey, what do you say we both be independent together, huh?
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
We have the tools, we have talent.
It's Miller time.
Luminous beings, so we, not this fruit master.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Well, that's great. Either I have a monster in my kitchen or I'm completely crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Rise to the top, oh yeah.
That's the nicest thing a dog can say about anybody.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Enough, I get the point. You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Sometimes happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you going to call?
It's showtime.
All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio, episode 289. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is a grand reopening show for newsprintcomics.com, which is a campaign that's currently on Fund My Comic. I have a lot of updates on this campaign. That's why I'm branding it as a grand reopening, because there's so much to talk about. There's so much to show you guys. And there's just so much to go over that I've added to the campaign because I've spent a couple of weeks now in the printing phase of a lot of things. So I have a lot more information based on the stuff that I'm using and will be using to print comics in-house on Newsprint. As opposed to before, at the start of the campaign, I was just kind of doing a lot of research, having proof of concept sort of stuff, but not entirely knowing what I know now. What I know now is based on experience and the data I guess I've been collecting with all of this stuff, and it's all really good. It's all really good. So I'm really glad to say that because, even there was a couple bumps in the process, but nothing too crazy, and I was able to course correct and get things even better than I possibly could have foreseen, to be perfectly honest. And hopefully you guys feel the same way. So I do have a bunch of things to talk about tonight and go over and show you guys and all that good stuff. But before I get into that, let me say hello to you. So I gifted, I didn't realize this, but it's been a crazy past month for various reasons. And I didn't realize that I didn't gift the 10 memberships that I normally do at the start of the month. So I made good on that here tonight. So if you did receive a gifted membership, congrats and enjoy. Let's see. We got Jefferson Roswell here. What's up, Jefferson? Good to see you. Looks like you got a gifted membership. All right. And I don't pick them, but if I did, Jefferson, you'd be one of the dudes I'd pick. Citizen Ronan, what's up, Citizen Ronan? And everybody else that receives one, I would have picked you too, but I can only do 10, and it's random. Ben, how's it going, Ben? Good to see you. We got Golden Tree TV here too. What's up, Madison? Wismore is here too. How's it going, Wismore? Alois says, how far along is the campaign? I'll be getting to that in just a second. One other thing before I get started. Stupid me, I didn't pick a bunch of the Alterna remastered books to show you guys, but those all arrived. So I'm shipping those out as well. A lot going on. The Blood Realm books are getting printed up here. Alterna remastered books arrived and are getting shipped out, along with a bunch of there's not too many people who need their King Cryptid perks yet, of like the signed box and things like that. That's going to be shipping out as well. And then that campaign will be wrapping up relatively soon. King Cryptid 10 to 13 is still funding. We passed 17K mark. We're at 420 backers right now on board. Thank you guys so much for that. If you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, please consider doing that, especially if you are reading the series. That's to fund issues 10 to 13 and the creation of that. Okay, so let's dive into the campaign. So to answer Aloise's question here, so we have 97 backers on board, 12,898 raised out of the $15,000 goal. We're 86% of the way there. And now there are 19 days left, because I'm going to have the campaign on Fund My Comic. I'm going to have it closed down. July 1st is the last day. So July 2nd, the campaign will be shut. As you can see, it says ends July 2nd at 3 a.m. Eastern, which is basically July 2nd, midnight Pacific. So July 1st is the last day to back the campaign and get a voucher. Vouchers will not be available after that point. I am not extending the campaign past that point. On July 2nd, newsprintcomics.com will direct you to an online order form submission area full of a lot of the same information that you find on the site, a little bit more, but also it'll have templates, and there'll be other things on there to inform you of the process of how to go about getting your print run completed. So if you ordered a voucher on the site, you'll be getting those July 2nd. I just want to let people know it's going to be a very busy day. Some people might be getting them July 3rd. But once you get your voucher, you can use that towards the print run. You can also use that towards the pre-press, and you can also use that towards the proof and the shipping. Everything that has to do with you paying for your printing, you can use towards that. So some people were asking about, if they could use it towards something that has to do with the printing order other than just the printing. Literally anything that has to do with that printing order. Like I said, the pre-press, the proof. If you wanted a physical proof, the 2 digital proofs are free. And then you can use it towards shipping as well. So if you want to estimate your shipping, if you think you're going to need pre-press services from me, I'll be going over that in just a few minutes so you can get an idea of what those costs might look like. And that's all on the campaign now too. So you can see right here, we got new images for the banners and a big new main image on there. None of this is like Photoshopped together. These are all literally printouts and books, and it's just a picture. It's not fancy Photoshop. Nothing's been adjusted. What you see here in this image, that's how it printed out on Newsprint in-house. So you can see there's a couple images here that I'll show just so you can get a better idea. Let me see. Can I make this more full screen? Or I don't think I can remove myself. I guess like that. We'll do that. Okay, so you can see the top left image here on this big banner image. That's an excerpt from Blood Realm 15, which is currently printing. Top right is page 1 of King Cryptid number 5. The middle Blood Realm images there, that's from Blood Realm number 8. And that's actually from a printed prototype of a book. You can see how the book looks there. It lays flat and everything else too. It's not curling upwards. And then the other two books, the book on the bottom left is King Cryptid number 2. It's a mini. And King Cryptid number 1, also a mini. These are not the minis from the proof of concept video that started the campaign, which is from a different printer. My older, like 10-year-old printer. These proofs, these two books, the minis here on the bottom left and the bottom right, are from the newer printers and on the newer paper stock. They print a lot crisper, a lot bolder, and a lot better. So right there off the bat, nothing from the previous image is here. The previous image that was on the campaign had stuff from the old printer. This is all from the new printers. I want to make that really clear. Okay, so, and that's a big reason why I wanted to change those images. Now that we have actual stuff to show, I want to make sure that we do that. So the grand reopening, which is June 12th today, here's what's new on the campaign. The last day of the campaign will now be on July 1st, 2025. I had mentioned that a little bit earlier. Print vouchers will no longer be available after July 1st. I also mentioned that. Doesn't mean you can't order print runs. It means you just can't get a print voucher off the site. Now, I do want to say, if you do get a print voucher off the site, it locks you into the pricing you see on the site. So even if you want to print it 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it locks you into the site, the pricing, what you see right here on the campaign, as opposed to maybe, let's say, I don't know, 2 or 3 years from now, the price goes up a quarter or 50 cents a book or whatever it is. You're locked into the pricing that happens here on the campaign. If you order your print run later, you don't pre-order and get a print voucher, you get the print pricing at the time in which you get the quote. But here, if you get a voucher, and I'm going to have everybody in like a spreadsheet to keep track of who got a voucher, all that kind of stuff. If you got a voucher off the campaign, you get locked into the best possible pricing. It'll never be lower than what you currently see on the campaign right now. Hopefully we can hit a couple stretch goals that will enable us to really freeze that pricing for a few years, because then I can purchase a lot of paper, ink, all that good stuff to kind of just keep the pricing very low for as long as possible. But we'll see. I'll go over that in a second as well. So on July 2nd, newsprintcomics.com will direct to an online order form to place printing orders. That's basically going to be alternacomics.com/printing. But newsprintcomics.com will take you there. It'll be a lot easier to remember and less clumsy to say than that. New images of test prints and books are on this campaign now. Updated stretch goals and the amounts of those stretch goals are on the campaign right now. Pre-press services added to perfectly prepare your files for print. I did not mean to use so much alliteration with that, but I've been making comics for 19 years, so I suppose that it's just natural at this point. People have been requesting for the pre-press for me to do it, and they would pay a fee of some kind or whatever. I didn't really think it would be possible to get it done effectively without too many demands upon the person sending in files. And I found a way. I was really trying for a couple of days to figure out a way of how can I do it, and kind of getting in the mindset of, okay, let me send in files. Let me pretend I have no idea what I'm doing with this stuff, because it's going to be difficult to even get a person who's maybe skilled at pre-press a graphic designer to do this correctly without there being a lot of back and forth about it, because quite frankly, no one's doing what I'm doing. And many people in comics, if not almost everyone in comics, has not even printed on newsprint in a very long time. And even if they did print on newsprint 10, 20, 30 years ago, it's a different way to do it now than it was then. So it really hit me that I'm kind of like the only person that's really doing this. I should try to offer this. But again, the only way I could is if I could guarantee it would be the best outcome, and also have it done as quickly as possible, because I'm going to have a ton of other things to do. And I managed to nail both of those things. So that's why I'm offering the pre-press services. I'm going to go over that in just a bit too. There's also now shipping estimates on the site on this campaign for U.S. orders. So for people in the United States that place an order, you can get an idea of what your shipping is going to look like. For people outside the U.S., I will ship you your order, but we're going to have to talk about it, because it's going to be, in some cases, significantly more than what it would be shipping within the U.S. But I will ship, anywhere, really. There's only a couple places that I really don't feel too solid about shipping to in terms of this stuff, especially. Generally speaking, and I hate to say it, but I've had a lot of problems shipping to Mexico, a lot of problems shipping to South America, Central America. Out of anywhere in the world, I've had a lot of problems shipping there. I'd say about 90% of the time, stuff that I ship to those regions does not arrive. And if it arrives, it is almost obliterated. So I'm not quite sure I'd be offering shipping to there. We don't get a lot of people anyway that are from that part of the world that order in general from Alterna. I haven't really shipped a ton of packages there, maybe 20 in the past 20 years. But about like 16 to 18 of them don't make it. So it's a pretty bad success rate shipping there. But anywhere else, I've had people in Canada ask, I've had people over in the UK, Australia. That's perfectly fine. Again, it's just, I'll have to let you know. I need to know exactly what you want to get, the amount of books, the page count, the size, whether they're the minis or the standard, and then of course your country that it's shipping to, and then I can give you a shipping estimate. Keep in mind, the estimates are estimates. So if you end up getting, and that goes for the US too, if you end up getting a print order in like 2 years, and I told you your shipping would be $20, maybe it's 25 at that point in time. Maybe it's 30. I don't think it's going down. I hope it would be going, that'd be great if shipping prices went lower. I haven't seen it happen yet, but if they went lower, yeah, they'll go lower. But I want you to keep that in mind. It's an estimate when you see the shipping prices on here. So before I really dive deeper in here and go over all the details on this campaign and walk you through it, I'm going to see if there's any kind of questions in the chat before I run along. Wistmore says, if you get a voucher, can you increase the amount later? Totally. Yes, so there's a couple people who've already purchased multiple vouchers. What's going to happen is that, let's say you purchase 3 vouchers. I'm going to combine them all into one. So, you could purchase like $50, $100, $70 or whatever. I'm going to combine them all into one voucher. This way it's nice and easy. You just keep track of one voucher, one thing. You treat it like it's a gift card for printing. And you use that for your whatever you get that's printing at Alterna. Like I said, you could use it towards the proof. If you get a physical proof, you could use it towards that. You could use it towards the pre-press service. You could use it towards the printing, of course, and you can use it towards the shipping. So if you have enough money there, you can use it towards the whole entire thing. If there's a balance left over, you have a balance left over that you could use towards something in the future. If you don't have a balance left over and you use your entire amount and you owe a balance, then you can just pay for that at that time. So if everything goes through with the voucher, let's say you bought $275 of vouchers, your total order is $300, you would just need to pay $25 at that point in time. So it's nice and easy, very simple. But no matter what, it locks you into the pricing you see on the campaign. And that's probably one of the most important things, other than the fact that you're really helping me too to make sure that this thing gets off the ground, to make it up and running to where it needs to be, to keep this thing going and be as successful as it possibly could. But the vouchers benefit you guys. And again, if you could purchase 20 vouchers, they're all going to be combined into one amount. And then that code is going to be given to you. And you just essentially use it like a gift card. Wismore says, I see, sounds like you can make a larger order and use the voucher towards a full price. Exactly. Dr. Mask says, Hail Pete. What's up, Doc? Hope you're doing good. We got World of War comics here too. How's it going, Tommy? I hope you, thank you, sis. This is awesome, Pete. I hope you, I don't know if you backed the campaign yet, but I hope, it'd be kind of cool to see you make something in newsprint. Give it a thought. It's up to you. Jefferson Roswell says only 14 sketch card commissions still available on the campaign. Thank you for letting people know about that, Jefferson. I appreciate that. That's the only place I'm going to be offering commissions for the rest of the year. So I got a couple more commissions I got to finish up. But if you didn't get a commission on this campaign, or you didn't get a commission on the King Cryptid campaign, between the Blood Moon campaign, the King Cryptid campaign for 10 to 13, this campaign, that's it. That's all the commissions I'm doing for the whole year. Not taking any more commission spots past that. This is the last spot I'm offering commissions, so make sure you go pick one up if you do want one. And this is the only place I'm offering you can get any character you want. On the King Cryptid campaign, you got to get a King Cryptid character. Alois is Central and South America, or just South America, or just South America. That's bad. Both have been pretty bad to ship to. Dr. Mass, what's up? Says member for 11 months. Oh, thank you so much, Doc. Appreciate that, man. Says, hey, Pete, would black and white and one color be considered a color comic? Yes. Yes, because rarely is one color just a color. So what I mean by that is, like, Blood Realm, for instance, is black and red. And obviously the white is the paper. But red, you need both the magenta and the yellow. So you're just not really using cyan, but you're basically still using 3 out of the 4 colors available, and very heavy amounts usually too. So even though you're not using any of the cyan, you're using an awful lot of both the yellow and the magenta. So if you're doing black and blue, well, is that blue just 100% cyan the whole time, or is it, shades of blue? So it's one of those things where you're using more colors than you realize when you have like one color with black and then another color. So it would be considered as a full color comic. Let's see here. Let's see. Doc says, that's the question I answered. World of War says, I'm in between jobs, but I would like to. Says, I have a lot of colors, Pete. Would that be an issue? Not really. No, especially if you want to have me do the pre-press, which is something I would absolutely advise for people who have a comic that they feel has a lot of modern colors or modern coloring, that sort of deal. Something that wouldn't just really look. I mean, honestly, I would say, and I'm not trying to just sell pre-press services here. It's just $5 a page for pre-press services. But the amount of time and headache I think it would present to a lot of people who might be intimidated by the process, or maybe they don't have the tech to do it, or know someone that does, or know someone that, even if they do have that tech and the capabilities, would actually know how to prepare it for newsprint. It's a whole different system at play, as opposed to printing it, send files to an offset printer or whatever, and just have them do it. You still got to know what you're doing with pre-press, but newsprint is not as forgiving. So if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be pretty bad. And that's something too, that before I even send a proof out, I would do a pre-flight check just to make sure that the resolution is there, the sizing is correct, and that also the ink coverage totals are correct, because you get 2 free digital proofs. But the point of that is to send you 1 digital proof based off of files that I looked at and go, okay, these are ready for print. So now you would look at it just to make sure that everything looks okay with the page order and that it's coming out correct on my end. So when I go to print, everything looks okay, and we've approved of that looking that way. The second proof would basically be, and that's still for free on digital, that would basically be if you found an error in the first proof, and maybe it's on my end, maybe it's on your end, whatever that may be, and you want to correct something. Maybe you found a typo, maybe there's a page that's out of order, and then you would get the second proof back for free. Every proof digitally after the second one would be $5 per digital proof. So if someone, they keep finding a typo, they keep kind of rushing through the process, it doesn't just turn into an endless amount of digital proofs. You could get a physical proof. Those would be $25 a piece. That's also at a discount on the campaign. But digital proofs, obviously, if you want to keep going with them, are less cheaper than the physical proof. Physical proof, you get it literally looking like a finished comic. So, like I said, the whole point is I do these pre-flight checks that make sure that the book is actually print ready. If a book is not print ready, I would bounce that back to you and say, look, whatever is wrong with it, the sizing, the resolution, the ink coverage, that's usually the most common things. Maybe fonts aren't embedded properly. Maybe you can't embed fonts properly. That might be a thing too. It's still going to look fantastic. If you embed your font and you retain the quality of the font and you do it properly, it'll look just nominally better. So if you really can't do that, let's say you don't have the tech, you don't know someone that can, it wasn't done that way, maybe your files got completely flattened so you can't do it that way, that's fine. It'll still print great as long as the resolution is a minimum of 300, but I would strongly recommend 400. 400 is really going to get you the best result. Anything kind of above that, I'm noticing that it doesn't really do much of a difference. So that's why I really suggest, though, to get back to the whole pre-press part, everyone should kind of go through me for the pre-press. It'll get done quickly and perfectly. But if you know what you're doing and everything that I say does make sense to you on the formatting part of the campaign, and the same thing on newsprintcomics.com when you see that listed there, if you're used to prepping files, if you understand when I say, 220 total ink coverage, 400 DPI, CMYK, you know what bleed is, you know what trim is, you know what safe area is, you're aware of all that kind of stuff, then you kind of shouldn't have a problem with prepping your files. You still might have a problem, but I can just bounce it back to you and probably communicate it quickly enough. But if you're like, wow, I got to hire someone else, I guarantee whoever you hire is probably going to either cost you more money or it's going to absolutely take more time, because they're not going to know 100% on what to do correctly because of the newsprint factor. But anyway, World at War says, what is the price difference between newsprint and traditional like Kablam I have used? You got to check that. The last time I checked, it was something like $2 a copy, but you gotta do that kind of due diligence. Doc says most comic printers don't give you the why. This is true. AL, what's up, AL? Hope you're doing good. All right, so on the campaign here, those things at the top there, just as a quick summary of what's new on the campaign. I'll get right to them here for you guys instead. You don't have to search around for this stuff. So the shipping is one of the things that I've added to the campaign so you can get an estimate. So shipping is estimated to cost $10 per 25 to 75 copies of your comic, $20 per 76 to 150 copies, $30 for 200 copies. Now, this, of course, is based largely on the standard size of comics, but to be perfectly honest, there's not too much of a difference here. You're probably talking about maybe $5 or so less for a mini comic to ship in these amounts. In some cases, like the 25 to 75 copies at $10, that's kind of what it's going to be like anyway. So there's going to be a couple different options depending what you want to do. If you want to do UPS, if you want to do Ground Advantage, if you want to do media mail, it's going to be up to you. I'll give you different shipping quotes when the time comes, when you get your print order all together. But that'll be up to you what you want to have it shipped at. Obviously, different services are going to cost different amounts. But that's an estimate that you can kind of plan out, and that's, again, just in the U.S. It says I can ship internationally as well, but I suggest messaging me for an estimate on the shipping charge for a print run, as it will be significantly more expensive than shipping within the U.S. Shipping charges can also be paid with your print voucher. Making sure to mention that here, because, again, your print voucher, it says print voucher, but some people might not be aware that you can pay for the pre-press, the proof, and the shipping. It mentions that also here at this point. It says how, purchasing a voucher on the campaign, that's in the print voucher section, will lock you into the pricing on the campaign and can be used for printed proofs, pre-press, and shipping charges as well. So just in case there was a question about that. Now, does that mean that maybe you want to purchase another voucher to cover your shipping or your pre-press or whatever? You could do that. It's up to you. Or you can purchase that later on. Like I said, the voucher will cover as much as it possibly can, and whatever balance you have owed, that's what you would have owed. But if the voucher covers more than enough and you have a voucher balance, you would still have that balance on the voucher itself. So you could put that towards whatever you want on another print run in the future or whatever it may be. So the shipping part of it, that's there on the campaign now. The formatting part of it, this mentions also about the pre-press. So the pre-press services, if you're unsure or unable to properly prepare your files for printing on newsprint, don't worry, I've got you covered. For just $5 per page, I can prepare your files so they print perfectly. All you need to do is have the page files properly sized. So you see above in formatting, that would be in this section here about how to size them properly. And in the proper resolution, 400 DPI recommended, no less than 300. If you do less than 300, I'm going to bounce the files back to you. I'm going to say, you got to have a native resolution, no less than 300. And now a native resolution means you can't just go in there. Let's say you really screwed up and you saved your print files at 72 DPI, and there is no way to get these back. Like, that is a really, I feel for you, but I can't print those files. The reason being is that if you went from 72 and you increased it to 300 or 400 and just, went to Photoshop or whatever and just put that resolution in there, will it print a little better? Yeah, it'll print a little better. It will. It won't print as pixelated, as blocky, or as blurry. But it's still not going to be print ready. It's still not going to look as good as it should look. It's still going to look a little bit off. It's just not going to look great. And that's really not right to do to your customers, your readers, or yourself. So as long as you have it natively saved at 300 or 400, that means that the file in and of itself was created that way. It wasn't upscaled. It wasn't resized. It's been that way, that you've been working on it that way the whole time. Now you can downsize. So if you had files you were working on that were 600 DPI and you want to downsize them to 400, you could totally do that. You'll retain that information, and it'll still look great. But upsizing, rescaling, upscaling, that kind of thing from a low, especially if it's really low, like, I wouldn't say to do this if it's at 200 and put it to 300. Yes, it probably to most people will still look okay. Fine lines and maybe even text might not look that great, especially if you didn't embed the text. But you could do it. You could. I don't want to suggest doing it. I don't want to encourage it. But you could. But I really don't recommend, if you saved your files completely wrong, they were saved for the web, and now you have nothing high res for print. and you're deciding, okay, I'm going to save it now at 300 or 400, I'm going to upscale it. I really don't recommend that. I really don't recommend that. I don't know what else I can tell you at that point, because that is a really big mistake. I would always recommend, before you do any kind of resizing, copy the files over to a different folder and then mess with that folder. Leave the master files alone. That would always be my suggestion on that. But, mistakes happen. I get it. It's a really big mistake. And hopefully you never experience that. But yeah, so other than that, just give them to me the right way, sized right way, with the proper resolution, and I will literally take care of the rest. So you don't have to worry about ink coverage. You don't have to worry about anything really. That's it. You can just send them to me as a TIFF or as a PDF, and you're good to go. And your files are going to print great. So that again is $5 per page on the pre-press services. If you got a 20-page book, that's $100 on the pre-press. If you've got a 32-page, that's $160, so on and so forth. The cover, I guess you can count the cover towards it too, but the covers don't need to be prepped in the same kind of way as they would on newsprint. I don't mind doing your covers for you if you want me to handle the cover as well. It would still be $5 per page, basically per side. So on a cover, there's a cover, back cover, inside front cover, inside back cover. So that'll be 4 pages. So if you also want to get the covers prepped, and I just take care of the entire book, I can do that for you as well. It's just I would take care of that differently than I would for the pre-press than I would for the newsprint. It's nothing that you're going to notice on your end. It's just more so the covers, which print on a coated glossy stock, have to be prepped different than on the newsprint. But what I tell you on the 220 ink coverage and all that kind of stuff, and CMYK and resolution, that's the same thing you can apply to the cover, to be perfectly honest. Putting more ink on the cover, even though it's a paper stock that can handle it, I don't necessarily recommend it, because it's overkill on the saturation on the ink coverage for the paper stock. You'll notice there's a lot of comics out there. They're all on thin paper, the interiors, let's say, and it's not newsprint. It's sometimes it's glossy, it's matte, it's whatever, but you're covering both the front and the back of that sheet of paper. And a lot of these comics are full bleed, so the art goes all the way to the edge. I don't really recommend doing every single page full bleed on newsprint. I can work with it if you need me to do that, but that's why I if you go full bleed, I'm almost always going to insist let me take care of the pre-press, because it really has to be handled the right way. Otherwise, it's just not going to print right. You're going to have too much ink on the page, and it's going to be a nightmare for you to try to figure out how to get all the ink coverages correct with still maintaining the integrity of the art. So what I mean by that is, on newsprint, when you have like the black at 100% with no other color in the black, so it's not a 4-color black, it's just a 1-color black. Now, if you have a dark blue next to a black, and the black is just 100% black, 100% K, which is what the CMYK in that is black. If you have a dark blue, so it's got both the cyan and black in there, maybe even some magenta, that color to the human eye will read darker than the 100% black. It's going to throw off the look, because the color values on the ink coverages are so different. So you have to go into it knowing what to do and proportionately downscale your ink coverage. Now, to communicate that to your pre-press person or to you or to whoever, that's going to be something short of a nightmare. And the back and forth that will ensue And the time that will take up is going to probably drive everybody to the brink of sanity. So I really would encourage you instead, and strongly recommend and suggest that you go through me for the pre-press on that. Some people might be like, well, that's kind of unfair because, you know, you're charging for it. But if you're going to do it this way, you should do it right. And it's a very small charge for the pre-press. And it's a headache-free experience at that point, instead of going back and forth or manipulating your files in a way that when I still send it to print, there's so many little things that can go wrong. And if you didn't go in there and actually change everything the way it needed to be changed, you're going to have a very looking printed comic as opposed to what you see on your screen. Because what you see on your screen is not entirely correct to what gets printed out. I hope that makes some sense. So on this whole process here, that's why I've added the pre-press services, because I was thinking about it, and it'll make everyone's lives a lot easier to do that. So that now is available on this campaign and available obviously for later on too. It'll just make everything a lot better. So the pricing's the same, all that kind of stuff. You can still see the videos of the original test comics that were made. Now there's a lot of new images. I also have stuff to show you tonight. That's not just images on the campaign. But some of these have been up already, and some of these are new. So here you have a new image of Blood Realm 15. I've posted this to Twitter before, but I figure I posted to the campaign. None of these images have been altered. None of these images are, there's a filter. None of these images have been adjusted in any way, shape, or form. They're all straight from the camera right to the campaign as you can see it. And these are all on Newsprint. The only things that are not on Newsprint would be the covers. So you see like these covers, that's not Newsprint. These aren't Newsprint. But all the interior shots are on Newsprint. I've been printing on Newsprint commercially for about 8 years now. And honestly, what I'm doing in-house is looking better than anything we've ever done commercially. The Blood Realm books for 15 to 18 are coming out incredible. I seriously cannot believe it. They're knocking me back with how fantastic they look. So here's the collage you see that's on the top of the campaign. And then here's more images. So these are printouts from King Cryptid number 7. And these were put together as a book. I have that book to show you guys as well. I've showed it before, but I'll show it again if necessary. And then I did Blood Realm number 8. And you can see the way that printed up. And you can also see how the book opens. The book opens and then it's perfect. I can't say anything other than that. It comes out great. Here's another section of King Cryptid number 7. I wanted to show black and white, and I also wanted to show some of the Blood Realm stuff too, with how that plays off. And there's full color images too, if you wanted to see some full color. These are just some test printouts, and above you can see all that kind of stuff too. Some more images from Blood Realm 8 and King Cryptid 7. And then you can also see the test prints from the early part of the campaign. I'm still leaving these up here just because it kind of shows a bit of the history that went into this campaign. And I don't want people to think that those images were imagined. So this is, though, from the start of the campaign. And it says these prints provided a proof of concept and are not indicative of the quality of the print and paper quality of the comics that will be printed as a result of this campaign. So all of this stuff was literally just proof of concept from the other printer, and that other printer will not be used on this campaign, will not be used for your books to be printed, will not be used for Alterna books to be printed. This was all just part of showing that this was all possible. Now, the mini goals here, before I get into the mini goals have stayed the same. The stretch goals have kind of changed. Before I dive into that, I'm going to check with you guys, see if there's any kind of question in here. Comics Legend says, hi, Pete. Will the Newsprint campaign ever be launched on Indiegogo or your website? Newsprintcomics.com will basically be the Alterna site. It'll be directing you to alternacomics.com/printing. So that's where newsprintcomics.com will go to on July 2nd. When this campaign closes, it'll be July 1st will be the last day that this campaign will be up on Fund My Comic. On July 2nd, then newsprintcomics.com will direct you to an online order form where you can see a lot of the information that's on here, but you can also place your order and communicate with me through that order form to get your printing done. And then you get a quote back. And then once everything is settled upon, then you would get basically an order link that you can then pay for everything through that. If you ordered a voucher, you can use your voucher at that time. If you did not order a voucher, you can just pay for it regularly at that point in time. And if you used a voucher and you need to pay a balance, you can do that as well at that point when you pay for your print run. Comics Legend says, would you ever have a paid course on pre-press? Probably not. I don't have the time or the setup or any inclination to want to really do that. Let's see. Frederick says, hey, Pete, super excited for this campaign. Could not find newsprint as an option in my area. Well, it's tough to come by, especially if the printers that would handle newsprint don't want to do a short run. Most don't, and it's not feasible for them really. Most newsprint printers, which are web press printers, either cold set or heat set. You could look up more about what that means. But most of them won't even touch print runs that are less than several thousand. It takes a lot of work to even find one that'll put a run at 1,000 copies. The reason being, these presses, they're very fast, and they'll spit out a lot of copies, way more than you could possibly need. If you order 1,000, they'll generally spit out 5, maybe even sometimes 10 times the amount of that within the time frame of just putting that machine on to the time that they shut it off. A lot of copies come out. So it's a very different setup than what I have. A lot of them have good quality, but they're absolutely built for speed. I'm going as fast as I can go. I got the 2 printers. They are not commercial grade, but it's built for quality. It's built for quality. With that said, it still pumps out a lot of pages per day. So, you're probably looking at like, once you approve of a proof, probably 25 copies per week would be the turnaround time. And what I mean is, by the time you approve the proof to the time you would get your order, it would be about a week, 7 business days. So that doesn't count weekends. That just counts the weekday. So if you're thinking, 50 copies, that's like 2 weeks. 100 copies, 75 copies, etc. 25 copies per week. So like 100 copies turnaround time would be like about 3 to 4 weeks, maybe less. And the reason I'm going to overestimate on shipping is because this way, if there's anything at all that goes wrong with that, it's better to overestimate on that stuff than to underestimate and say, okay, I'll get you 100 copies in 2 weeks. And meanwhile, I needed 3. But I'll be giving the turnaround time estimate once the order form is done, because there'll be a lot of different people at certain points in time that are going to put their orders through, and then other times there's going to not be as many people. So depending on how things are, it's a first come, first serve basis. So if I have 10 orders ahead of yours, I'm going to probably give you like a 2-month turnaround, because I got to get the 10 other orders done. So it really does depend on those kinds of factors. Now, if you're someone where you like to plan ahead, and so you're planning your printing months ahead, you're pretty much always going to be fine getting something through me. If you're someone that you completely don't plan at all, and you just remembered you have a convention in 2 weeks, I'm not going to be the guy for you. I'm going to be very honest about that because it doesn't help anybody to take on a job that I can't get done to you at the right amount of time. I'm not going to charge a rush fee. I'm not going to do anything like that because, yeah, Comics Legend, this is the pitfall of the rush fee. 10 people take a rush fee. Now all of a sudden I take everyone's money and a rush fee and I can't rush anything because it's back to where it was. So there is no rush fee. There is no skipping ahead of the line. What happens is everybody ends up taking a rush fee, and the rush fee doesn't turn into a rush fee anymore because I can only handle what I can handle. So at that point in time, you gotta prep and plan in advance. Now most people do that. But for the people that, for one reason or another, that didn't work out that way, there's a lot of other printers out there where they have the capabilities to print something relatively quickly for you. I would recommend going with them. Maybe it's not on newsprint. Maybe it costs more money. That's what it is. So there's nothing I could do about that. But if you're someone who does plan ahead and you want to get this stuff done, and let's say you've got a convention in July and you send me your order in February, you're absolutely getting that way before you would need it for your convention. Or you've got a crowdfunder and you've got your books done and you want to fulfill in 3 months and you need me to do 200 copies for you, you'll absolutely have those books in time. So if you're realistic with me, I'm realistic with you. If you're not realistic with me, I'm still realistic with you. And realistically, I'll probably have to say no more often than say yes if the situation is you're waiting to the last minute and going, hey, can you get this done for me? I need it in 2 weeks. No, that's going to be the response. And I'm going to hope that you calculate and consider giving me a little more notice the next time around, but I'm going to have to say no to that job right then and there. It's nothing personal. It's just not physically possible for me to do that. Because again, I'm not going to be a full-time print shop. This is an indie part-time print shop. I take on as much work as I possibly can to give you the best quality that I possibly can in the time that I can do it. But if I'm going to be a full-time print shop, this campaign would probably need $50,000 to $100,000 to raise. And then on top of that, I would no longer be publishing any comics, let alone making any comics. And I'm not about to do that. I've already talked about that before. So there'll be times where maybe there's a lot of work that's come in and I just have to tell someone I'm not taking any more work at this time. You'll see that on the site, that let's say for this month, let's say, because August will be up and running 100%. And let's say I get 50 orders I got to do that came in August. That site is going to pretty much say the order window is closed now until October. And that's what it is going to end up being. So you can still do your online order, but I'm not going to be firing up anything and printing anything until October. So whatever the time estimate might be, that's what it'll be. And that's just kind of how I have to do it, because realistically, I can't do it any other way. There's only one of me, and there's only so many pages that could be printed at a time, only so many books that could be printed at a time. It's a very small operation, and it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. So that's the way it is, and that might be how it is for a while, if not for forever. But it doesn't mean that we can't do something great, and it doesn't mean that you can't get your books made. You just have to plan in advance. That's all it is. Let's see. So on the stretch goals here, these are all built to help scale everything. These are all built to help freeze the pricing for as long as possible. So at $17,000, this was previously an $18,000 goal. At $17,000, it's going to unlock a dedicated mini comic printer. So that'll be a third printer. And this printer will only print the mini comic size. and it's going to also unlock additional ink and paper for that printer. At $20,000, this before was a bit higher. This is for additional storage space, along with 2 years worth of paper, ink, staples, shipping boxes, replacement parts, anything that I could conceivably need for 2 years of printing. At the $20,000 mark, will be taken care of. This will also lock in the pricing for printing for the rest of this year, 2025, and also for 2026 and 2027. Because by the time I get up and running 100% for printing this year, it's going to be basically August. So that's only 4 more months in the year. The pricing will be locked in for 2026 and 2027 as well, if we can reach the $20,000 mark. At $25,000, it's enough funds to purchase any additional and upgraded machinery and equipment if and when the situation arises. So this is kind of like contingency money at $25,000. I might even consider purchasing an additional large scale standard comic printer at that point. I'll have to see how the printers I have are holding up, because that's something that I'm interested in too. So far, they're doing great, far better than I thought. Each machine has spit out roughly 1,000 pages. No problems whatsoever so far. Everything's printing great. Everything's sounding great, looking great. But I don't know, a year from now, can I say the same thing? We'll see. But at the $25,000 mark, that's going to enable me to, if I need to, I can purchase a replacement machine or maybe even upgrade a machine at that point, whether that's a printer or something else. But that will be more than enough to handle that. And at $25,000 as well. The way this campaign is built, it basically is, I can't, if I can't reach a certain dollar amount, because when I reach these certain dollar amounts, what I'm really reaching is people placing print orders. It's not like the campaign is just selling sketch cards or T-shirts, and then there's no printing being done. So if I reach $25,000, largely that's going to be on the back of print orders, which means that I can justify purchases of upgraded or additional machinery. If I'm not reaching these certain marks, so if I don't reach like 15,000, if I don't reach 17, if I don't reach 20, I'm not really getting in the amount of work and print orders that justify what would come with those different goals. So everything here is justified for what I would need. But right now the campaign is very close. We're 102 away from 13,000. And again, it closes on technically July 2nd. July 1st is the last day to back the campaign. But once we reach 13,000, we're just 2,000 away from the $15,000 goal, which is a really great place to be on this campaign. That's going to really lock things up for the first year of operation. And I'm hoping at that point it's kind of self-sustainable. So what I mean by that is that even if the campaign reaches 15,000 and not a penny more, there's still going to be people coming in with print orders. There's still going to be people that are getting their stuff made on newsprintcomics.com, even if they didn't purchase a print voucher. So at that point, it's going to be relatively sustainable. And I think when people receive their orders too, they're going to be really and hopefully impressed by it and would want to continue to print more through us. So that's the long and short of the campaign. Lots of stuff on here, some pretty big updates. I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff though live on here. So today I printed up and trimmed to size all of the mini comic sample booklets needed for the campaign. So you can see how that looks. And this is 25 of them. And you could see, like I said, they lay flat. You just got to know how to do it, right? So these are 12 pagers. These are 12 pagers for the sample booklet. But these are, like I said, the mini size. And so they come with different information, sizing, formatting, what the cover is like, and then the price table for mini comic, and then on the back of them, the price table and all that other stuff, information, sizing, formatting, etc., for the standard comic too. And then on the back, you could see a template example, so it kind of explains the template system and everything like that. And pre-press, proofs, turnaround time, packing and shipping. So this is a very useful item to just kind of reference. Now it says 2025 print sampler. If our pricing freezes at 2026, 2027, I'll still just send these samplers out. I might update the covers, I might not. It depends how fast I go through everything. But if the covers need to be updated, so you could see like the way Blood Realm printed out. And this is just an example, again, to see what the printing looks like and all that kind of stuff. But if I need to like cross out 2025, put 2026, when the time comes, I'll do that, because these are just, again, sample booklets. On the campaign, I'm going to be signing these, both the standard size and the mini, which these are the mini. I'm not going to be signing the ones past that when they get ordered on the site. But this is so you guys could, again, you can see how these print up and how they stack. Like, these aren't just single sheets of paper. These are actually formed books. Okay, so I'll put this to the side here. And then I've showed these before too. These are the minis for King Cryptid 1 and King Cryptid 2. These are not the ones that were printed to do proof of concept. So these were printed on the printers that are currently up and running, printing everything. And again, this is on a higher grade newsprint, which is what I'm using. I'd say, I've talked to some people before about this. I'd say it's kind of like a hybrid between like early Dark Horse, Valiant, even like First Comics, what they had used, mixed a little bit with like Baxter paper and like 90s, like early 90s Marvel. If you could kind of hybrid all of those paper stocks together, you kind of get what this paper stock is like. And it prints nice and vibrant, really bright with the colors. And there's virtually no see-through like on the other side. You know, so this is literally a mini replica of King Cryptid number 1. And then here's the number 2, and you could see black and white. Again, just to show how a color comic and a black and white comic print up. That's what these were made for. But I'd showed those before, but I just want to really reiterate, those are not the proof of concept from the other printer, the older printer. Those are from the new printer. Hey, what's up, Sheldon? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. So this is the most important. Actually, I'll save that one for last. So these 2 books were prototypes that I had printed up. There's King Cryptid number 7. And you can see this is not the commercially printed one, because I got these covers, real simple cover, just done. These are not the official covers that would be printed with your book or with the alternative books. It was just a kind of a mock cover to have. But at Staples, they printed the inside upside down. And I didn't want to correct them because the experience was so bad. I just wanted to leave. So I paid for my poorly printed copies and I left. But this is the interior. This is cut to scale. This is what the books would look like. So that's King Cryptid 7, black and white again. And this is Blood Realm Volume 3, number 2, or basically Blood Realm number 8. Again, this is not the commercially printed version. You can see the inside cover is upside down. And here's what the interior would look like. And these were all printed in-house. And you can see, let me see, will it focus on there? You can see how crisp the text comes out and the line art. And then just like all the other books too, you can, sorry about that, you can see how they will lie relatively flat. This was a book composited of a bunch of errored pages and then printed or trimmed to size, I should say. They all got some errors on there. But this is these are 52 pages of newsprint, technically a 48-page book. And you can see how at the spine, it'll stay together. If there was an actual cover on this, it would hold a lot better than what it is. But with it being newsprint through and through, it's not really going to do that. Now, here is the test copy of Blood Realm 15. So yesterday I picked up the covers from the printer. They all came out great. You could see the ads on the cover there. Yeah. Now, there was something disappointing that had occurred on this one and on a couple of the sample books. And I found out what the problem was. So, again, this is like a proof test copy, right? So, things like this of like a little bit of the white showing. So, this, it kind of printed improperly, which is why I'm glad that I printed a little test copy out, put them together. It was a lot easier to see everything together when it was done that way. Again, that's why printed proofs are so great too. So I'll show a little bit, more of how. I don't want to give too much of it away because it's kind of a book that hasn't been released yet. But all the corrections have been made to the files, and what had happened was it was two things. So we needed to add a border around the edges of the pages. But the bigger problem is the manual creaser that I have. It's a different sort of machine than an automatic paper folding machine, which I'll be having come in relatively soon because we reached that fourth mini goal. This one, it was creasing, but it creased on like a slight deviation. And I was noticing when all of those pages were getting put together that there was a slight either left or right on the crease. It wasn't 100% even down the middle. And I said, for the hell of it, let me just put them together, see what that looks like, even when it gets trimmed, because there's bleed there. And does the bleed compensate for the little bit of an askew quality on the trim, on the fold of it? And it doesn't. It compensates a little bit, but not entirely. So that really was a nice lesson for me when I was doing all these printouts. And again, better to do it in the testing phase of things and do it and find out you printed like, 1,000 sheets of paper, and then you can't really use them. So it's easier actually for me to use the manual creaser as a backup, as like a jig, and kind of have it printed and then folded, and I can fold it manually really easily and use the bone folder, which is, it's basically, let me see, do I have it near me? Here it is. Now this thing's like made of like 100% Teflon, so it just glides real easy on there, on the page. So that's used to just fold sheets of paper quickly and efficiently and that kind of thing. It's easier for me to use it that way and then fold the pages correctly. And it's faster too than actually using the machine the way I'm supposed to use the machine. And if everything I just said makes no sense to you, that's perfectly fine. This stuff is both interesting and utterly boring. So long story short, that's the reason sometimes it's nice to get a printed proof. At least on my end, I get to see, when there's an error like that showing up, I get to make those adjustments. Now that I can see those adjustments, I can make sure the rest of the print run comes out perfectly fine. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes there's little errors that happen, and you can compensate for them in the trim process, and you trim and it looks fine. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes the pages, like these came out great with the way they were bordered. But when you have like a full bleed page that's not precise, sometimes even in the trim process, the way it prints out, the way it folds in this case, something comes out askew. But now I corrected all of that stuff, so I'm not going to have any problems with it moving forward. But I think it's something that's important to show so people understand, like, this kind of stuff. It sometimes you think your files are prepped a certain way, and that's also why it's important to have files prepped a certain way and adjusted a certain way too. If you're going to have full bleed pages, you really need to understand the trim. The art needs to be in the precise dimensions, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, with the Blood Realm books, we're doing a border around the white pages, which is important to have for a lot of the pages that Blood Realm has. But it is interesting to see, again, in this experiment phase, because mostly Blood Realm usually looks like this. It's got the white border around the pages, that kind of a thing. So it's all part of the weird learning experience this has all been, because there's certain things where it is an exact science, and there's certain things where you really have to make the fine-tuning adjustments. And that's something that I've found that when I do come across little problem areas, I'm at least able to correct them relatively quickly. So that's been a good part about this, because sometimes there's problems that happen and you really can't figure out what the hell you did wrong. And you can't course correct. And then later on you figure it out and it's been too late and you've done too many of them and it gets out of hand. But this one, it's really good to see, okay, so that's where we went wrong. Don't do that. And that'll be fine. Let's see. So Comics says, can the comics not have the white border? Yeah, they cannot have the white border. That's why I said you got to make sure, and I have to make sure, everything gets printed the way it should and everything gets folded the way it should. Because if it folds just askew, then it's not going to come out right. I do recommend, though, that if you do a full bleed, really make sure, absolutely make sure, because a lot of people, they do a full bleed, but they don't understand that you need to have your elements of text and important imagery still within the safe area. Full bleed isn't necessarily just have the page art to the edge and adjust it as if that's the entirety of the page. You still need to treat the page subconsciously, like as if the art, like you see the way the art is here, but you got the border on the page. If this image was to the edge of the page, a lot of the images would get chopped off. You still wouldn't have a page that's fitting in the same way. And then you might wonder, well, why did all my stuff get chopped off? Or if this cover was full bleed the way it is here, you would actually get partially some of the text at the top chopped off, as well as some of the logo. You would get some of the barcode chopped off. All this kind of extra stuff. You would get a lot of over here, the image, you would get it chopped off. So you have to know what you're doing when you size that correctly. And that's something sometimes, like you see the way that there's text here, and especially here. So if this was a full bleed page, meaning that you don't see this white, you put the full bleed page through. What happens is that when you trim, that would basically get trimmed out. So you're actually trimming into the imagery and the text. And sometimes there's people that just think full bleed means you put the art to the edge of the page. But what it really means is that you're compensating for the trim and you're still designing the page with that in mind. You're still designing the page with all of the important elements, the text, the graphics, all that stuff. You're still putting that in a safe spot. It's just the rest of the art. And it might look awkward to you when you go to send those files in. But what's in the bleed area gets trimmed away. So you need that stuff in there. It serves a purpose, because if it's not in there and it's not in there right, and you're putting everything really close to the safe area, really close to the trim line, even if you're thinking like, well, there's no way that that's going to get trimmed because I have it within the trim size and the bleed is past that, there's always like an eighth or a 16th of an inch where the printing kind of skews. And if that 16th to an eighth of an inch is very close or sometimes over what you've got on the trim, it's going to get chopped off. So you got to make sure you give a nice comfortable margin. Usually, and I have all the sizing here, you can see on the site. So it has it with the formatting. So your trim size is either 5 by 7.5 or 6.625 by 10.25, depending on if it's a mini or if it's standard. Your bleed, you want to add an eighth of an inch, 0.125 on each side of the page. So that's a quarter of an inch overall, which means that you end up getting a full size of 5.25 by 7.75 for the mini, or 6.875 and 10.5 for the standard. The art on a full bleed page should go to the edge. Text and important elements should not go past 4.5 by 7 for the mini, or 6 by 9.5 for the standard. Even though the trim size is 5 by 7.5 for the mini, you still don't want to have text or important imagery past 4.5 by 7. So that gives you a quarter of an inch top and bottom, and it gives you a quarter of an inch left and right. Now, I'm always a little more paranoid with that stuff. Like, that's like the bare minimum. You should not have stuff go past that point. I usually give a full inch between the inside of the trim and what I would consider the safe area. So I would honestly really recommend 4 by 6.5 on the mini, and I would recommend 5.625 by 9.25 on the standard. But you want to get a half inch on both the left, right, top, bottom. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get, because there's a difference between the case in a safe space, it's in a safe area, so it's in the live area. There's a difference between that and does it read well? Because there's a tendency when people put something in full bleed, if you put text and imagery that's too close to the edge, it reads wrong. There's an odd feeling that occurs when you're reading the page. It looks like it's just a little too cramped or a little too close to the edge, and it reads wrong. It reads as if the page was trimmed too tight or was put together wrong. So I always recommend giving yourself more room on that and giving yourself a half inch. But that is I'm trying to give the elements there of the most that you could possibly get away with without something getting trimmed. But that, again, that's something that you have to set up. I'm going to have a template with that set up, and then you can download the template, and that'll be on newsprintcomics.com when it's on the online portal. And you can download that template. It'll be as a TIFF, and you can have it in layers, and you can adjust the opacity on the layers so you can see where your art matches up with where you got to be. And that'll be in the mini and in the standard. But again, it's that kind of thing of, I don't really recommend you go full bleed on every page, but some people have it that way. And I recommend strongly when the people do have it that way, if you've got your book, it's completely full bleed, pay for the pre-press service so it can actually be printed properly, because that's a lot of ink coverage front and back, and you're going to need to set that file up correctly. And if you don't have that file correctly set up, it's going to print poorly. It's going to be a frustrating experience back and forth to get it to print right. And it's also going to end up resulting in a book that just doesn't look as good as it possibly could. So that's why I really recommend getting the pre-press service for that, and that's why I'm offering that too on the campaign. But that's about it for tonight. Let's see where we're at here. So we are we're $2 away now from 13,000. So we had a backer during the course of the show. Thank you very much. And looks like we are $2 away. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. This was the grand reopening of this campaign. A lot of information to take in. So if you need to rewatch it, if you need to, go over the campaign, again, do your due diligence. If you want to go out there and compare prices on print-on-demand services or with other printers, by all means, I strongly encourage that. That's always going to be to your benefit. Sometimes you'll find that, maybe this is the best course of action for you to go and have me make the comic, or you can go with somebody else. If you want it on newsprint, if you want a short run of 200 or less, if you've got a book between 8 and 48 pages, if you want a mini, or if you want a standard size, and you don't mind, of course, it being stapled, this is what saddle stitch is. It's a stapled spine. Then newsprintcomics.com is most likely where you want to go, especially if you can plan in advance and you need, a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever it might be to get your print run done. You don't need a rush job or anything like that. Then this is most likely going to be the best bet for you. Otherwise, again, feel free. Go and compare. Go to Kablam. I think who else is there? There's Comics Wellspring. There's Print Ninja. There's a lot of different printers out there that do short runs of comics. And then there's also local printers, commercial printers, all kinds of printers that are out there. Again, do your due diligence, and whatever you come up with that works best for you, works best for you. And if it's working with me, then great. We can do that. Let's see. Comic says, I think the template would be very helpful. Yeah. So the template will be up when the site is up and 100% fully running, and people can download it from there. All right. So that's about it. Thank you guys so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. And again, thank you for the support on the campaign. We are $2 away from the $13,000 mark. $15,000 is the goal on the campaign. If you're someone who's not interested in getting a print run, but you want to support this anyway, we have the samplers that you could pick up. I'll be signing the standard and the mini, and for $10 you get both of them. And then also we have a t-shirt here with the bumper sticker, and that's at $30. And then we've got a sketch card, and you could get a sketch card of any character you want. I only have 14 of these left out of the 30 that were available, and this is one of the last places you could possibly get a commission from me for this year. I will not be taking any more commissions for the rest of the year because I'll have more than enough because of all the campaigns and all the commissions. But thank you guys so much. Oh, looks like we got another backer. Let me refresh this so we can see the 13,000 on the screen here. So we're at $13,015. Thank you guys very much. And we're at 98 backers, so we're 2 away from 100. Thank you guys so much for your support on this campaign. I see a lot of people still spreading the word about this. Thank you guys. Really can't do this without you. And we're getting so close. We got 19 days left to reach 15,000 and maybe more. The more that we can raise on here, the better. It'll really help keep things locked in for hopefully as long of a time as we possibly can. If we can get to 17, I can get that third printer. Just doing the mini comics printers on that third printer will free up the other 2 printers to focus on the standard size comics. And that's a huge thing too. But thank you guys for keeping this going. And thank you again for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. And Jameson says, just donated 10. I saw that. Thank you very much, man. And Comics Legend says, congrats. Thank you. And Jeff says, campaign's doing great, Pete. Yeah, it's doing fantastic. And I really have all you guys to thank for that. So, again, your support means a lot. I can't do this without you. And I really appreciate that you're supporting in such a big way, including tuning in tonight. So thank you guys once again. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it. Thank you. So I'll be back again. Let me see. Oh boy. I'm crazy busy with printing. Can you believe it? So I don't know. Maybe Tuesday. I think I have a show on Tuesday. I'll have to check in with you again. Otherwise, maybe Saturday night. I still have to check where I'm at with everything, because this stuff is a priority, both shipping stuff out and getting things printed. People have been very patient with everything, so I want to make sure I get them taken care of. But I'll be back soon. I'll see you guys in a few days, if not sooner than that. Until then, everyone have a wonderful night and an even better tomorrow. I'll see you soon. Take it easy.